Welcome to Brick by Brick. Join me, Loren, as I share my personal journey of building a thriving real estate and hard money lending business from the ground up. Along the way, we'll explore the strategies, challenges, and breakthroughs that come with growing wealth. Whether you're a seasoned investor or aspiring entrepreneur, or simply curious about the world of private lending and real estate, this podcast is packed with actionable insights, real-world stories, and mindset tips to help you build your own path to success, brick by brick. Welcome to another episode of Brick by Brick. I'm your host, Loren. Today we have a great podcast with Anton Z. Today we are going to talk all about getting leads. If you're in real estate, this is going to be a podcast that you want to listen to. And we also want to dive into how Anton got started, what he's currently doing, and where he's going from there. So Anton, thanks for joining us. Do you want to just give us a little bit of overview on who you are, where you came from, and what you're doing now?
Awesome. Yes, for sure, Loren. Thank you so much for having me, man. Super excited to be here. My last name is Zherelyev. It's very difficult. Russian last name has been butchered my whole life, but I'm known as Anton Zherelyev on Instagram. So it's much easier than saying Zherelyev. So Loren, thank you so much for having me. A quick overview of where I'm at now and where did I come from. Just a 30,000 foot view, wherever you want to go from there, just let me know and stop me. But I'm an immigrant. I immigrated to the United States when I was 11 years old. With a family of five in total. We came to this country with around $60 in our pocket. So it was one of those types of rags to riches story that I'm happy to talk about. But at the end of the day, it was an interesting, very interesting upbringing. Like I said, we came here with very, very, very little money. My dad not knowing English, he went to do what most people not knowing English go do. He was an engineer back home, mechanical engineer. And then he decided to go work on construction sites. I was 11 years old. Long story short, after a few years of working on construction sites, he got a very good relationship with his manager. And he asked him, hey, can I bring my son out and help me out on the weekends? And because, of the laws, that I only could do it on the weekends. And it was just more volunteer type of work because my dad really just wanted me to get out there and start working. So at 14, I started laying tile. I learned how to install kitchens, bathroom fixtures. It was honestly one of the coolest, best times of my life now that I look back at it, because that's when I actually started making some money. The guy that my dad was working for, he was super, super cool. And he started paying me money under the table as a kid, a few bucks here and there. And I remember for 1 month of work on the weekends, I got my first paycheck. I'll never forget, 60 cents was the amount. And I looked at that check and it said Anton Zherelyev on it. And I felt like I was the richest kid in the world. From there, the light bulb flew in my head that this is exactly what I want to do. I want to go out there and work. I grew up super, super, super fast because of the situation that we're in terms of being able to, or actually necessity to help my family. And so I started helping my dad on construction sites on the weekends. I went to college. Long story short, fast forward, my parents basically said to all of us, I have three siblings. I'm sorry, it's three of us. I have a brother and a sister, so it's three in total. And my family said, you know what, guys, you are on your own. We brought you to this country because we wanted to give you a future. Just to let you know, Loren, my family had a really nice life back in Russia. I'm going to say this right now, with all the Ukraine situation. At the end of the day, Russia is not the most popular place to be, but at the end of the day, it's like I have Ukrainian friends. I love Ukraine. It has nothing to do political wise, no matter what you look at. My family had a really nice life in Russia. My father was an engineer. My mother had a really nice job, and we had a 2-story, 4-bedroom house that we just left everything and came to the United States. And the reason why we did this is because they wanted to give us a better future. But then they said, you know what, you guys are on your own. So I went to college, got my bachelor's degree in finance. I wanted to be the first person in the family to get an MBA. So I went for my MBA, got my MBA, and got into the corporate world. And that's when things kind of took a turn on my life, because I was lucky enough to get a job at an engineering firm that literally took me around the globe. My second week on the job, my manager said, hey, Anton, do you have a passport? I said, no. He said, well, you better get one because you're going to China in 2 weeks. So I had 2 weeks to get a passport to go to China and get some training. And I freaking loved it, man. It was one of the coolest time. I did it for 7 years. And I traveled the globe. I visited over 48 different countries. My job was fun. I was one of those bachelor type of kids. I'm going to call it a kid because I was in my early 20s, traveling the world. But I always had, the reason why I started with the whole laying tile part of my journey is because I always had this thing in the back of my mind of real estate. I knew that I wanted to go back. I knew that there was power in buying houses, rebuilding them, renting them, and selling them, because I learned this when I was 14. And I could tell that the guy that we were working for, he was super successful. But I just had no clue about what real estate really, how to start outside of my experience when I was 14, from 14 to 16 years old, working on the weekends on construction sites. But it was always in the back of my head. It was always in the back of my head. But I was traveling the world, living the dream. And then, long story short, COVID hit. And one thing that my mentor says that I love to repeat is that COVID made a lot of millionaires. And I was just lucky enough to be one of them. Because COVID gave me the opportunity to slow the heck down, because I couldn't travel anymore. Remember, I was traveling 6, 7 months of the year. I was sitting now in my four walls in this apartment. What the heck do I do now? I still had a job, but everything went to Zoom. So you worked for a couple hours a day, and then it was just nothing. Because most of my time was spent at either in airplanes, airports, hotel rooms. And now I'm like, what do I do now? I started learning about real estate. I said, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and jump into this world of real estate. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up, and then we can go wherever you want to go from this in terms of the direction you want to lead for your listeners. But I started wholesaling real estate. I did that for a year and a half. I've done a couple of deals myself. Wholesaling is probably I believe, the most powerful way to learn real estate. It's the cheapest way to make the most mistakes, I call it, in real estate in terms of strategy. The wholesaling led me to buying and holding my properties. It led me to flipping, and then it eventually led me to starting my own business, which is now called REI Lead Pros, which we help investors find off-market deals through direct-to-owner lead generation type of services. So that's my story in a nutshell.
Wow, there's a lot to unpack there. I find a kindred spirit in a lot of what you said, specifically around like growing up in kind of a tougher upbringing. Because, while I didn't immigrate from any country, I grew up in rural Michigan, where I grew up on a farm. My family still has a large farm there. And from the time we were old enough to basically walk around, we were feeding cattle, running, doing hay bales, things like that. And what I learned really quick was my dad wasn't going to pay us. And so I had to go get a job as soon as I could get one. And so I learned the meaning of hard work very quickly. And it sounds like you did too. And while it wasn't in real estate like yours was, it does lead me to pushing to grow my business. It lets me have that work ethic to move the ball forward. And like you, I found real estate in 2020. When I was working my corporate job and I didn't want to do that anymore, I started doing some rental buying because I basically wanted to get out of that 9 to 5, that asking for the 4 weeks of vacation off each year. When you're talking about this transition from the corporate job to starting your own business, starting wholesaling, which I have done before, and if any listener doesn't know what wholesaling is, you're essentially buying a house or a property from a seller at a discounted price, and then selling that property or the paper, basically the contract, to an end buyer who's going to fix it, flip it, rent, turn it into a rental, something. And so you're the middleman and you're capturing a spread. So you're going to put it under contract for $50,000. You're going to sell it for $65,000 and keep a $1,000 spread. It sounds super easy, but as someone that's done it, it is all about generating leads, finding who those people are, finding how you can help them, right? How you can get them out of a situation they don't want, and then having a really strong group of end buyers that can purchase from you, because you have to have both sides. You have to have a seller and you have to have an end buyer. So can you talk me through that emotional and mental transition from being that to employee, working a corporate job, climbing that ladder, to going out on your own? And, what were the things that were holding you back initially, or maybe you didn't have any? And what were the things that were really driving you forward?
Love that question. Absolutely. In terms of what was holding me back, let's start with that, because I think that's what a lot of people are either listening to this podcast or maybe had this experience in the past, is the whole of analysis paralysis, not knowing what you not know type of situation, where you are sitting there like, well, I don't know what wholesaling is. I don't know what real flipping is. Just getting into this analysis paralysis stage. The problem with that is you usually don't even realize it, how long you stay in that stage, reading the books, listening to podcasts, going to the events, and you really don't realize how fast the time flies. And you're like, holy shit, I'm still in the same position where I'm at. Yeah, I know all this stuff, but did I take any steps to take the action to actually do it? Most likely not. A lot of people, if not everybody, went through this situation in their life, and they literally just stop themselves and say, this is a time for me to dive in and I need to start taking steps. So you're right, it was a huge transition for me in terms of my W-2. Now, the good thing is I did have some money saved. I did have for your listeners, I'm sure you have listeners that are still working their W-2s. Stay and use that as a leverage. So I had that as a leverage of this income coming in that I could then devote a few 3-4 hours a night after work, doing my wholesaling real estate stuff, but definitely use that as a leverage. Don't just say, you know what, that's it. I'm going to go ahead and jump into real estate, quit my W-2, and I'm going to succeed like these guys on Instagram are doing. And that's not the case, guys. Make sure that you understand that it's going to take work, just like you said, Loren. That it sounds easy. I say real estate and wholesaling, and specifically, it's simple, but it's not easy. It is a simple process, but it's not easy. It's going to take time. It's going to take grit. It's going to take sleepless nights. You waking up knowing that you have a property under contract that you got to move and you don't have a buyer. And then you're trying to think, how am I going to call this other lady and explain to her that I cannot actually buy her house, that I said I was going to buy her house. So there's a lot of stress to go into it. But in terms of the transition, let me tell you what happened. And this is probably one of the biggest takeaways from this podcast for your listeners is the cheat code to wealth. I think if there's one cheat code to wealth that I found that your listeners must pay attention to, and this is very, very, very important, and that is, you can't do this on your own. You have to get yourself around people that are doing what it is that you want to be doing. If you want to cheat code yourself and shortcut your quote unquote time to success, is get around people like Loren. Get around people in his network and try to learn from them. Become a sponge. Don't go out there and try to be interesting and say, hey, I'm this guy ready to start in real estate, but be interested and try to learn as much as you can. And the cool thing about real estate that I'm sure your listeners know, or if they don't know, they must understand, real estate is a very rewarding business to be in because everybody is on your team. Everybody literally wants to help you to make money, because if you make money, they're most likely going to make money. If you go out there and try to learn, ask questions, be around people, and really soak in things like a sponge, but then remember, you must take the action. Don't just read the books and take the podcast, but go to Loren and say, Loren, I want to learn from you. But then show Loren that you can actually, take the steps that he's telling you to take. And that's exactly what happened to me, Loren. I'm thankful that it happened this way, because what I did is I found this mastermind community. It no longer exists. It used to be called Rat Race to Fi. I joined a community of investors. And you guys can find these things on either locally or online. I'm sure maybe Loren can recommend some communities where you can meet with a specific group of people who are looking to do exactly what it is that you're looking to do and just learn from them. They usually have weekly calls. So this mastermind was a weekly call, Rat Race to Fi, where every single week you come on the call and you ask questions. And you ask questions of the leaders of the masterminds. Usually these masterminds, Loren and I are actually part of Dan Martell's group, and Dan leads this mastermind of entrepreneurs that are doing 7-figure plus in their business. And he leads the call. But then at the end of the day, what happens is Loren and I connect, and now we're doing this podcast. We're going to figure out how we can probably most likely do more business together in the future. But this is exactly what happened to me. So from the transition side of things, I was learning, I was listening to podcasts. And then the best thing that I did in terms of that propelled me to my success was I joined this Rat Race to Fi group and I started taking action. When I first was on the call, Loren, this is funny because really quick, they asked me, what it is you want to do, right? And one thing that I will say, guys, if you do join these groups, be as quote unquote participative as you possibly can in terms of letting people know what it is that you're looking to do. Don't just sit there and be like a fly in the wall and try to retain information and take notes. Participate. Tell them what it is that you want to do. Try to ask questions. Raise your hand, because at the end of the day, there's no stupid questions. The only stupid questions is the one that you don't ask, because I'm sure people are thinking the same thing. So I just said I want to. Back then, the cool thing to talk about that you hear on Instagram was house hacking. I said, hey guys, I want a house hack, without even knowing what that is. And really quick for your listeners, house hacking is basically when you buy a house and you rent by the room, right? So you live with your wife and then you rent a room to somebody else who lives literally in the same house. And I had a conversation with my wife and she was like, nah, I don't know if this is the best thing that we want to do. So that idea flew out the window. She's like, I don't know if I want to do house hacking. So let's think of something else. And then one night there was a guest that came in on the mastermind. This is probably like a month in. His name was Gonzalo Corzo. You guys, if you want to look him up, he's a phenomenal resource. Loren, I recommend you maybe even connecting with him on IG. He's one of those guys that doesn't flash anything, but he's definitely phenomenal resource regarding wholesaling and buying and holding and flipping. His name is Gonzalo Corza on IG. And the reason why I speak so highly of him is because he taught me everything I know about real estate and in terms of wholesaling. Literally, he came on the call and he's like, hey guys, I do wholesaling. And he explained it just like Loren did. You buy a property, put it on a contract. He made it sound so simple. He's like, oh, this is so like simple again, not easy, simple. Just like Loren just did what wholesaling was. But you know what? That intrigued me. I'm like, holy shit, okay, this is cool. Let me go ahead and just reach out to him. And literally the next morning, I texted my mastermind group. I was at the gym, mastermind group leader. I'm like, Loren, listen, man, I don't know what I got to do, but I got to get Gonzalo's phone number. I need to reach out to him because I'm willing to pay him anything he wants to teach me more about this interesting thing called wholesaling. And the cool thing is that the leader of the mastermind, like, dude, here's his contact. Like literally just because I asked, don't be afraid to ask. Just because I asked, he sent me the contact right away. I called Gonzalo. Gonzalo, man, I appreciate you coming on the call. I'm willing to pay whatever you need for an hour of your time. I just need to learn more about this wholesaling thing. And just to let you guys know, going back to Gonzalo, what Loren was explaining just a second ago about the 60,000 versus the 65,000. I'm sorry, you said $50,000. You put the property on the contract and then you sell it for 65,000. You make that $15,000 spread in between. That is what is called your assignment fee. So that's what your fee you're making as a wholesaler. Zalo at the time was making $4 million freaking dollars in those assignment fees, not deals, assignment fees. $4 million a year at that time, and then he went on to do $8 million. So he was cranking deals, man. He knew what the hell he was doing. He was in wholesaling, and I knew he was a guy that I wanted to learn from. When he said that, I'm like, okay, let's see this. So I called him up, and I'm like, Gonzalo, look, man, whatever you need. And he was like, bro, come on Saturday, 7 a.m. I'll send you the Zoom link. I'll give you an hour of my time. Whatever you want to learn, I'll be there. I'm like, sure. Saturday, 7 a.m., Loren. On a Saturday. I jump on a Zoom call. Gonzalo's at his office talking to a freaking seller or a buyer. I think that was a buyer at 7 a.m. He was moving a deal to a buyer on a Saturday. He was like, hey man, one sec. He hashed out a deal. He hangs up the phone. All right, man, you got an hour. Go ahead. What you got? And he literally just bombarded, and I literally just had all the questions written down, and I just bombarded him, and he fed me value. And then he's like, man, let me know whenever you get your first deal under contract. But for now, I got to run. That was it. I'm like, okay. And that fired me up because that put the responsibility into my lap of taking the action. Now, Gonzalo gave me the quote unquote the sauce. Now I have to go and take the sauce and make a cake or whatever, the dish out of it that I needed to make. And I literally started hunting deals. And I'm going to finalize the story, and I'm going to let you ask me a question because I know you probably have a lot. But it took me about 6 months to get my first deal under contract since that conversation. But I put in the work, I put in the time, I made the calls, I learned the script. I literally did everything I possibly could learn. Like we said, it's simple, but it's not easy. Lead generation is one of those kinds of things that you have to, and we can talk about the whole lead generation side of things and how your listeners can maybe learn what I learned from Gonzalo. But 6 months go by, and I remember I got my first deal under contract, and I FaceTimed Gonzalo at like 8:30 p.m. I'm like, Gonzalo, I'm sorry, man. I know it's late. The guy's in his freaking office, like hanging around, and he's showing me his office with his acquisition team. Like, yeah, no, man, we're good. We're here working, locking up deals.
You don't do $4 million a year not being in your office all the time, right?
Exactly. And I'm like, man, Gonzalo. And then from there, he walked me through the deal. He helped me get a dispo. And then from there, it just kind of like flew by, and I started doing my own deals.
That's an awesome story. I think a couple pieces there. You kind of breezed over a couple of points that I think I want to point out is that you took action and signed up for a mastermind, which anybody that knows anything about masterminds, you don't know what you're going to get out of them. They're usually thousands of dollars, depending on which one that you're going into. And so there's a big mental hurdle to take that step of, I don't know if this is going to return anything, but I'm going to put $4,000, $5,000, whatever that, could be $40,000 in to get this, knowing that it's going to give me something, right? Or hoping that it does. So that was a big action step. And I think the other action step that a lot of people wouldn't take that you did was you saw somebody that was where you wanted to be, and you wanted to create a relationship with them. And so you reached out and took that step. A lot of people would follow them on Instagram, maybe put a couple comments, do something very passive to try to get into their circle, but just think, I don't need to talk to them. I'm going to learn as much because I don't want to look stupid, right? I don't want to fail in front of them. But you put your ego aside, which is a huge thing that all of us have to do when we're learning, and said, I'm going to reach out to him and ask all these questions, no matter how dumb, because I don't know them. But he might think this are so basic. And that's what we all get questions from new investors, and they're all to us like stuff that we've moved past, but we were all there at one point. I remember asking a friend one time what equity is, right? And it's just like stupid things now that I could talk about that for an hour. Right. And so those 2 points of taking action and then working really hard for 6 months to get that deal is something that a lot of people won't do. They'll start the process. Maybe they have they get their LLC together, they get their business name, maybe their website, and then they don't find anybody, or they talk to 2 or 3 borrower or sellers, and then they just quit. Right. And you just have to grind. And I think a lot of people, somebody told me this right at the very beginning of my career in real estate, and they said it's going to be way harder and it's going to take way longer than you think, but it's going to be really worth it when you get there. And it sounds like that's kind of similar to what you were seeing and similar to what Gonzalo was also experiencing as well.
Absolutely. And I love that you said that. It's going to take it's going to take way longer. It's going to be a lot harder than you expect. And guys, at the end of the day, just like you said, it will be worth it. Real estate is not one of those things that you wait to get into. You know, the whole thing, you buy real estate and then you wait instead of waiting to buy real estate. So it is definitely a very, very rewarding career, not only from the monetary side, but also from the relationship side. The relationships that I have been able to meet, to make the job that I was able to quit, the W-2 that I no longer have, the business that I was able to start, was all because of the relationships that I was able to build on my journey. But you nailed it. I didn't see it back at the time, but you saying how I really, instead of just being passive about it and trying to email the guy or follow him on Instagram and then troll him on Instagram and try to send him some messages, I literally did all I could to get his phone number. I called my mastermind guy and tell me, how do I get in touch with this guy? And literally that. So,
and if he hadn't answered the first time, I bet you would have called him again and maybe texted him.
Bombarded them, man. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Just like you said, these masterminds, they're not cheap, but at the end of the day, they are valuable. They are super valuable and take value out of everything that you pay for. Obviously, do your research. A lot of people sell out there a lot of stuff. Do your research. Talk to people like Loren. Reach out to me on Instagram if you guys would like to get any insight from myself. But they are super like $5,000, $6,000, $10,000 that you pay for. If you take the action that you need to take, that you know you need to take, and not be lazy about it, and not be scared, and not be in analysis paralysis stage, if you really take the action, take the steps that you're being taught, I promise you're going to 10x your money in 1 year, most likely, or less, of what you paid for that mastermind. So don't be afraid. Just understand it's going to take the mastermind to help, and it's going to take you. If you just come sit there and try to take notes and not take any action, you're going to be in the same position a year from now, minus the $5,000-$6,000 that you paid. But just know you're there. You're going to take action, just like Loren and I right now are in a mastermind. I'm sure him and I paying a lot of money for it, but I'm sure we're taking huge steps. Even this step, him reaching out to us, and me reaching back out and say, hey man, I would love to. This is going to just create something that at the time, I don't know what this is going to create, but I'm sure that we're going to look back 5 years from now and say, oh shit, it all started with a podcast or a message that Loren sent on a group to his mastermind fellow guys, and now we're doing freaking deals together.
And you can't, I think that's fun of it. The part of the fun of it is that you can't know what it's going to create, right? But you trust the process and you just keep consistently moving that ball forward. I think the key thing about masterminds too is making sure that you're going into the right one, right? If I'm just starting out, I'm not going to go join a $50,000 a year one where people that are making $3 million, they have a whole different set of problems and Dan says this all the time. They're doing things that you don't even have a right to think about yet, right? And so you can stair step your way into, find an entry level one, or find some people that are 1 to 2 steps ahead of you. They can still relate to the issues that you're dealing with and can help you, but it's going to streamline how fast you get to where they are, and then move up to the next one and then the next one. But making sure you set your ego out to the side and ask the questions and communicate with the people in that group, and don't just tell them how great you are, because we see that a lot in the Dan's group of people, I'm doing all these great things, right? But we also see people like, hey, I'm struggling here. This is really, really where I'm hurting, or like my marriage is in a mess right now, or some example, right? And everybody there has either been through it, is currently going through it, or will go through a lot of the same things. And so thinking that you're special and that you have problems that no one else will ever have is the epitome of arrogance, because everybody that's built a business has gone through almost everything that you are trying.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, it's funny that you say that. I had an opportunity to meet a billionaire. That was one of my goals, was to meet a billionaire and have a conversation with him about problems, right? Like, I mean, man, you're a billionaire. You got all this money. I'm sure there's nothing in your life that you're struggling with. I'm sure you have all these CEOs and delegates that do everything for you. And at the end of the day, that's not true. No matter how much money you have, you're still going to have the issues. You're still going to have the anxieties, the problems. And it was a really genuine type of conversation. And I was super, 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 super surprised. And yeah, don't go into these masterminds or into these conversations trying to show yourself off. You're there to learn. No matter where you are in your life, no matter how much money you have in your bank account, try to come from a point of view or how I can learn from somebody and be my goal is to be a connector as much as I can. That's literally what I did with REI Lead Pros, to be honest with you. I just connected people. That's probably the most rewarding thing that I have been able to gain out of REI. We're doing great business, we're making great money, and yeah, sure, my bank account is different. But can I tell you that that's the most rewarding side? No. The most rewarding side is people telling me like, hey man, thank you so much for connecting me to this person, or thank you so much for putting this together. And this is how, if you don't mind, let me just jump in really quick, how REI got started is because I started doing business. I started learning how Gonzalo was doing business. I started pretty much implementing what he was doing. And then back in the day, what he was doing literally is he had an army of cold callers calling on his behalf to property owners saying if they're interested in selling their house. What did I do? I copied and pasted. I said, let me get an army of cold callers that are going to be calling on my behalf. It wasn't an army, it was 3 people, but they were going to be calling on my behalf, asking property owners if they wanted to sell their house. That was
Don't fix it if it ain't broke, right? Don't fix it if it ain't broke.
Exactly, right? But that was 6 months in. This is really quick. 1 second. 6 months after I get my first contract, I was like, I called him Gonzalo. Man, how do you do this? $4 million? It took me 6 months to get a deal? And this is cool. This is really, really cool, Loren. This is for your listeners who've never done this before. If you're looking into outbound cold calling or lead generation type of services, listen up, because I'm not here to sell you on anything, but I'm here to let you know that this is what you should probably do. Gonzalo didn't tell me from the get-go that he had, hey, I have this army of cold callers. I didn't ask him how he was getting his deals. I was just learning about wholesaling. How do contracts work? What do you say on the call? How do you run numbers? All the basic stuff. But he didn't tell me. He's like, you know what? And this is to your listeners too. You know what, Anton? I suggest what you do is you go on Zillow, go on for sale by owners. Literally, you don't have to spend $1 on this. The only thing that you have to do is spend your time on this. Go to Zillow, go to for sale by owners, pick up the phone and start dialing. Your goal as a wholesaler will be to get that property under contract at a discount. And when we say a discount in the wholesaling world, if you really want to make some money, that is 70% of its ARV. At least, minus the
after
repairs.
repair value. Yep.
Right? So yeah, ARV, which is after repair value, you calculate what's the fixed up property on the market is going for. 70% minus what you have to put in for the repairs, at the very least, if you want to make a little bit of money in wholesaling. So again, simple, not easy. Calling somebody who want to sell your property for $100,000 and you're saying, hey man, I can only give you 70, they're not going to be the nicest guy in the room. But at the end of the day, that's what you got to do. And that's what Gonzalo told me. Pick up the phone, start communicating with these owners, start understanding their freaking why. Why do they want to sell, their motivation? And then literally trying to get properties under contract at 70% minus repair of its value.
Yeah, and I think I want to point out too that it's not like you're taking advantage of these people. These people are in a situation where they need the money to get out of the house because they have some family situation. They have a house that they couldn't sell on the MLS because it has a bunch of repairs that need. Some of these houses are just in terrible shape. It's an abandoned house that, a family member has inherited that they just want the cash to get out of, but they don't want to do anything, or they live in a different state. Like, there's a ton of different reasons why someone would sell a house for a discount. A lot of it comes down to convenience. What, I can be out of this house in 2 weeks. I can get a check and I can be done. I don't have to deal with showings. I don't have to deal with a realtor. I don't have to deal with any of that stuff. And so wholesalers get a bad rap because they're like, taking advantage of grandma or whatever. But in all the good wholesalers that I know, they are going out and they are solving problems for sellers and creating value that then they deliver to their end buyers. And the end buyers are getting a property that is, they didn't have to source, that they can then turn and fix up and add value to the community by taking a crappy house and turning it into, something that looks really nice and a new family can move into. So I just wanted to make sure I clarify that.
Absolutely, and I appreciate that. That's definitely it. You want to go from the point of view, how can I help this person solve a problem? Because most of the time, these people do have problems. The for sale by owner properties probably not going to be the biggest. They don't have too many problems. They just they don't want to pay the realtor. They don't want to. But it's a great exercise. I didn't get my property under contract from for sale by owners, but it's a great exercise for you to practice the art of calling a homeowner and saying, "Hey, I'm interested in buying your property." They're already interested in selling. Now you want to find out the reason. Like Loren said, you must understand their situation. Dan always talks about making a mountain out of their pain, figuring out what is their pain. Was it an inherited property? Was it somebody that just has a property that needs like a lot of repairs? Maybe there's too many violations with the city that they cannot take care of. They're in a there's so many issues that you guys don't even try to assume that because you own a property everything's great. There's a lot of issues, and like Loren said, the peace of mind of having them receiving a check in 14 to 30 days or less is better than trying to list this property on MLS. Maybe they're not even able to list it on the MLS because it's in such a bad shape. So there's so many factors. But yes, but for practice, Loren, I would love for your listeners, if they're interested in outbound direct to seller lead generation, just so that you guys understand what it is. You free, it doesn't cost you any money, just your time. Pick up the phone, call about 50 for sale by owners. That's what G told me first to do. Then he taught me about the whole stuff about what I'm about to tell you. The next step is, of course, what you want to do is you want to take it in this step forward, which is pulling a list of properties in your area that are not listed on the MLS, that are not for sale by owner, that do have some sort of a distress in them. And there's different types of listing service providers that you can go out there, and propstream.com is the one that's the most popular, batchleads.com. But you can pull a list of properties based on whether or not they have violations. There's tax liens, they have been vacant, zombie properties, which is basically that has been owned for 20 years or more and it has been vacant. So this is like a tired landlord type of situation. So you want to stack these motivations and pull a quote unquote a motivated sellers list. By the way, for your listeners, if you send me a DM on Instagram, Anton Zherelyev, I can have my team actually help you pull this list, walk you through it. No strings attached. You don't have to be part of REI. You don't have to come to REI. We can actually run you how to pull that list for you if you would like. But that's your first step, is as a wholesaler, pull that list of properties that are not on the market, that do have some sort of equity in them. Loren mentioned equity. The property cannot be upside down. Basically, they must have enough meat on the bone for them to walk away with something. And then from there, what you do is you take that list. So I recommend 10,000 records a month is for one professionally trained cold caller is what you're looking for. 10,000 records. You pull that list, and again, DM me on Instagram. DM me the word list, and I'll connect with you with my team, and they can help you pull a list. No strings attached. Anton Zherelyev is my handle. But after you pull that list, you want to get the phone numbers of those property owners. So that's when we talk about skip tracing. Skip tracing is a fancy word that basically means that what you do is you submit this list to a company. I actually own a skip tracing company. It's called skipbetter.com, but you guys can use whatever skip tracing company out there. The reason why I own a skip tracing company is because I own a call center. We do 16,000 calls per month per client. We do, I think, over 2 million calls a month overall. So we do a lot of skip tracing. Like we spend shit ton of money on skip tracing and tested different providers. And then at the end of the day, I'm just like, you know what, screw this. I'm buying a skip tracing company. And it was actually going back to Gonzalo. That was the company that Gonzalo was using and building on, and literally bought that company. And now we are combining it with REI Lead Pros, but it's skipbetter.com. But there's other skip tracing companies. But whatever your listeners wants to do, like I said, this is not a sales pitch. This is for me to just to help. After you submit that list to that skip tracing company, usually within 24 hours, they will send you a list back with phone numbers and emails of only the contacts that they were able to get. So for example, if you submit 10,000 records, they charge you 10 cents a record. So that's $1,000. And if they were only able to find 8,000 records, then they only charge you $800. I mean, they only charge you for whatever records they find. From there, you take that list and you start dialing. Of course, you don't want to be dialing by 10,000 records, dialing by phone, every single number punching in is not the best way to do it. So that's exactly why you most likely will need a dialer. So going back again, you're going to need a list provider. Propstream.com is the one that I recommend. You're going to need a skip tracing company. Skipbetter.com is the one that I recommend. And then you're going to need a dialer. We're in the process of either buying a dialer or building our own, but the one that we're using right now that has been actually, to be honest with you, the reason why we haven't even bought it because they wanted too much money, we offered. And it's a phenomenal dialer. It's not the cheapest one out there, but it's called Ready Mode Dialer. And what it is basically you upload the list into that dialer, and then it would dial up to, it has 12 lines that can dial at one point. I don't recommend that because you're going to burn through the list too fast, but I would recommend between 3 to 5 lines dialing at the same time on your computer with a headset. And as soon as somebody answers, you will have the property owner's name, address on there, and you can start the conversation. So that's just to help you kind of make those dials. If you're doing this on your own and you want to use something less, I wouldn't say worse, but it's just more of a simpler type of a dialer. It only has 3 lines that dials at one point, but it works especially for the beginners. And that is called Mojo Dialer. That's the one I used when I started. Now on a higher scale, it doesn't really work. Ready Mode has a lot of amazing features like that we use at REI, that we can actually whisper to the caller. We can listen into the caller and whisper to them and they can hear us. So our quality control managers actually log into the dialer, listen to the callers, coach them while they're speaking and helping them. So that's kind of cool. So that's the dialer where you upload the list to, and then you just start dialing. And then from there, you start communicating with these property owners. Again, if you guys want a script that our cold callers use, so right now we have over 100 clients. I have over 300 agents working for me as outbound professional callers that make these calls day in and day out. If you guys want a script, again, I can provide that free to your listeners. Just DM me the word script. I'll send you the one that they use. You can use it on your own. But basically, the script goes into the 4 pillars that every single conversation must have, which is, are they interested in selling, the price that they want to sell for, the timeline, which is when did they want to sell, now, 3 months from now, a year from now, condition of the property, basically, is it in peak condition or does it need a lot of work? And you really just want to get the basics first before you get into the meat. And then finally, the motivation. Motivation is probably the most important part, but those are the 4 pillars: price, timeline, condition, motivation over the property. That's what you want to get out of that call, the first call. Now, let me take a step back here really quick. Guys, for everybody that's listening, don't expect to hear this and say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and start dialing and get a deal tomorrow. This is a not get rich overnight scheme or program or plan. Has nothing to do with that. It's going to take you time. For us, it takes anywhere between 60 to 90 days to get a deal under contract. And then from there, you go every month. You should be getting a deal under contract as long as you put in the marketing dollars back into the system, which is 10,000 records. But it will take you about 60 to 90 days to get that first deal. But what I'm trying to say is what Dan always says: fortune is in a follow-up. Every time you have a conversation with a homeowner, even if they're interested in selling, even if they tell you the motivation, most likely you're not going to get a close on that first call. You're probably going to get enough information to do some due diligence on your end, run some numbers, call back, and maybe start talking about an offer. But on average, it takes anywhere between 5 to 12 touches. And a touch is a call, is a text, is an email, is a note that you can send to them, a written note. So it's 5 to 7 touches. So guys, just do not give up on this thing. Even if somebody's like, hey man, not a good time right now. Hey man, I know I told you I'm interested in selling, but right now things are going bad in my world. Call me back. And just don't ignore that. Fortune is in the follow-up. And there's a great book that Dan recommended that I read and I made sure all of my acquisition managers, by the way, read. is called Go for No. One of my favorite books. It's super short. You're probably going to read it in a couple hours. But go for no. Everybody tells you no. Celebrate the no's. And don't discount it and say, "Oh, this guy's not interested in selling." If there's some hindrance of them saying, "Yeah, I might be interested, but not now, coming back, whatever," great. Put them in your follow-up pipeline. So long story short, make those calls, generate those leads. And what I was telling you earlier about how I was able to connect, people started reaching out to me for cold callers. And then we're like, holy shit, we're going to make a business out of this. So I connected literally people, investors that needed cold callers, put them together. And then over the last 4 years, we were moving and adding things like data, things like acquisitions, things like skip tracings, things like that, and putting it all into one nice package. So when somebody like as an investor comes to us, I'm like, look, man, I just want you to handle the lead flow. I don't want to be bothered with pulling the list, skip tracing the list, running market analysis. You guys do it all. Great. We got it. And we just send you the leads into your pipeline or into your CRM. And then from there, once the lead comes in, the lead is going to have all the information on the property. You, Loren, decide whether or not you want to go ahead and call that lead yourself. And then, like I said, 5 to 7 touches, do the follow-up yourself. Or if you want to, you can hire an acquisition manager that we then also added now to our pipeline, which we have closers basically calling on your behalf, negotiating with homeowners. Based on your exit strategy, guys, by the way, not every deal fits the same box. It could be a wholesale deal. It could be a flip. It could be a seller financing deal, or it could be a new novation. This is a new thing called novation, which everybody's excited about, which actually a lot of deals are being done. I can talk about novations if you like, but just understand that not every deal falls in the same bucket, that there's different exit strategies depending on what the seller is looking for.
Awesome. So much stuff there. I think, so I know a lot of wholesalers because I do double close funding, right, through my lending company. And I think one of the things that you have done that a lot of people don't do as wholesalers is move from, I'm going to get 2 or 3 deals locked up a month, on a good month, get those executed. You've moved past that to, I'm going to hire a bunch of cold callers and then I'm going to outsource, or not so much outsource, but start bringing other people in to use that and build that. What do you think you have done better than other wholesalers to allow you to not only manage, because that's one of the biggest challenges wholesalers face is managing employees, but being able to manage and scale a team for other people?
That's a great question. And I will start off with saying this, that it sounds easy, like everything we talked about on this call. It sounds simple. It's not easy, just like you said. There's so many intricacies in this business of hiring, training, managing, and we do not outsource. We actually have an office in Egypt now. By the way, right now we're having this conversation. I'm in Colombia. I'm in Medellín, Colombia, because we're going to be having an office here. I actually started REI here in Colombia. And the reason because my wife is Colombian, but hiring, training, managing people and making sure that they succeed every single day or do the work is 2 different things. So what I did is I was able to, from different wholesaler sides, is I was able to see a need and an opportunity and fill that need and provide a service that I think was necessary. I think there was a lot of cold calling companies out there, a lot of wholesalers that come to us saying, hey man, I have a freaking team in the house. I'm sick and tired of managing them. They have headaches. They call in sick. One day they rock and roll, the other day they don't. So it's not an easy business. I'm not saying that this is something easy, but this is something that I took on myself and say I want to build, and I want to. And at the end of this call, maybe I'll tell you what the vision is for this. But at the end of the day, right now we're only sticking with cold calling. A lot of people come to us, hey guys, can you do mailers? Can you do other stuff? I'm like no. I want to stick with one thing. That's one thing that I think that kept me apart from other service providers is that I really, really just want to become as good as possible, as compliant as possible from the TCPA rule side of things. I want to be the number one. I think we already are, but I still want to be known as the number one by every wholesaler out there, as the number one cold calling company out there before I take it to the next level in terms of adding services, which is a vision that I'm going to tell you over the next 5 years. But I saw the need. One of the biggest things that really flipped everything for me, and you know what, Loren, I don't know if it's luck, but I'm going to go back to G, and I'm going to go back to Gonzalo. Once I started hiring these cold callers, I picked up the phone again. G, you got cold callers. I remember you were telling me, right, man? Like, yeah, man, I do, bro. Yeah. How tired are you managing them and training them and the turn? He's like, man, I'm actually kind of sick and tired of it. I'm like, let me take this over. And we got to a point where I was able to, and again, I don't know, call it luck, or maybe it was me taking action, but I was able to learn from somebody who's doing $8 million. At that point, he was doing $8 million in assignment fees, guys. huge wholesaler in Florida. He's in Jacksonville, doing $8 million of signing fees. And I was like, G, I'm going to make this perfect for you. I'm going to make sure that you are happy, and I'm going to make sure that works exact. I don't want to be just try this and hope this is going to work. You tell me what you want to see. You tell me the kind of script you want me to use. And literally, he was like, here, take it. And we were doing 32 cold callers for him, managing, training, hiring, rehiring, remanaging, retrying, because cold calling, guys, is probably one of the most difficult positions out there to be in. That is exactly why I left Colombia, is because day in and day out, if you try this on your own, which I highly encourage you, before you hire somebody like REI Lead Pros, I highly encourage you to do this on your own. You will understand what type of work this is. Most of the time, you get people yelling at you, telling you get a real job, calling you every single name in the company, because nobody likes to receive a freaking telemarketing call. We're all in the same boat. I don't like to receive a telemarketing call, but at the end of the day, somebody's got to do it, and somebody's got to be the best at it. And you know what? I decided to take that. And the reason why I'm in Colombia right now is because I'm going to be building an acquisitions team here. So once the cold call comes in, once you go through the whole badgering of no, I'm not interested, you a-hole, blah, blah, blah. Once somebody says yes, then I'm training a team of cold calling closers here. I already have a team right now. Most of my guys are in Egypt. And the reason why they're in Egypt, Loren, the reason why I left Colombia is because, unfortunately, I have a Colombian wife. Nothing against Latin American people here, but they get really emotionally attached when somebody starts yelling at you. So they would just quit on me every single day. And I'm like, Jesus, man, I used to have a turnaround like crazy. And then one day, I'm not going to go into it, but I was lucky enough to have 160 people from Egypt apply to REI without us doing any advertising. And my HR girl was like, Anton, what the hell? What do I do? I'm like, interview them. And these guys are sharks. Like, if you guys ever been to Egypt, or any listeners, these guys are like, first of all, two things. They're hungry because of the position that their country is in. I had no clue about this, but Egypt actually went through a revolution about 10 years ago, and it still feels like it just went through a revolution about 2 years ago. So they're hungry to make money and have the opportunity. And second thing about Egypt, which I didn't know, is that a lot of companies like Vodafone UK, AT&T, Sprint, T-Mobile used to have cold calling centers out there before the revolution took place. So they're really well trained. They have great English. They communicate. They're super hungry. They communicate like they're yelling at each other at all times, but this is just them having a friendly conversation like you and I. So they're okay with everything, and they actually know a lot more about cold calling centers than I do.
Well, there's a cultural component too, right? Because, Americans, we just, whatever the price says on the shelf, that's what we pay. There's very little negotiating. People get nervous to go and talk to the car dealership because they don't want to deal with the negotiation. And you go to other countries like Egypt or anywhere in the Middle East or someplace in South America, and they negotiate everything. I mean, like, even when I was doing flips, like, my contractors were all Hispanic, and I had to get really good at negotiating real quick because, I mean, they would negotiate the cheese off my sandwich if I let them. They would negotiate everything. And that's just not the culture we have in the United States.
Absolutely. And just being sharks on the phone. I remember the first time I heard an Egyptian on the phone, and this lady was yelling on him, la 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 la, you a-hole, get a real job, la la, just because he asked if she was interested in selling. And at the end, you could hear him smile, like, "Thanks, ma'am. I really appreciate that. Do you know anybody else that might be interested in selling?" And she just click, and I'm like, "I'm going there." So I'm still gonna have cold callers in Egypt, but I'm gonna have acquisitions team, just like Hispanics. They're good at that. Once somebody said I'm interested, they're gonna negotiate it to the freaking team, man. So I can't wait to have team build here.
That's awesome. So other than just knowing what your cold callers are going through, what are the other benefits of like doing some of it yourself at first? What did you see?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I highly, highly, highly encourage your listeners to try to do this on your own. Why? Because you will understand that the investment of your time is not worth. So, for example, at REI, we charge $1,500 a month for the cold caller, the dialer, the list, everything. Like, literally what I talked about, from A to Z, running a market analysis, to you giving you the leads for $1,500 a month, and you're getting about 20 qualified leads a month. That is way, 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 way better spend time of somebody else doing that, and you worry about, just like you said earlier, one of the most. A lot of people think that in wholesaling, acquisitions is probably like the thing that you have to do first. I would actually argue the opposite. What you need to do is you need to understand your buyers. You need to understand your investors in your market. You need to understand what they're looking for, because you can use that information, and what I like to call it is reverse wholesale the whole thing. My buyers are looking for 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom homes with a pink roof and a green door, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. Because when that happens, what you're doing is you're feeding your team saying, hey guys, I'm looking for this. Go get me this. Because as soon as that comes in, you are talking to the title companies, you're talking to the Lorens of the world who are going to help you with financing, who are going to help you with double closing, who are going to help you get this deal across the finish line, rather than spending your hours trying to call 10,000 records a month to get 1 to 2 leads a day, if that, the whole day. You should be focusing on building those relationships, going out there and meeting people like Loren, understanding how their businesses work, what his investors are looking for, and providing leads and deals for him, so that at the end of the day, everybody wins. That is the benefit of, and again, the people that are doing this on their own, and look, in terms of hiring a team on their own, I salute you, because there's so many things. Like now, I have a whole managerial quote unquote tree, man. I have director of operations, I have operations manager, I have account managers, I have PMs, which is performance managers, which is for the callers. From there, there's so many things that you have to manage. Dialers are going to go down. Lists are not going to. It's a headache. Don't make it harder. Real estate is already hard enough. Wholesaling is already hard enough. Don't make it harder on yourself. Try to find people that are going to help you, and focus on what is your strength. My strength was negotiating, using my Russian background, just like you said, Spanish. I feel like Russians are also good negotiators, but that's what I wanted to do. I wanted just to speak to Lorens and somebody who said, yes, I'm interested, and have somebody else do all the cold calling for me and just feed me the leads. And that's what I will do. Put a deal under contract. Loren, hey Loren, I got a deal under contract. Your investor was looking for it. Can you help me fund it? Get the freaking deal done. That's how you get to the $4 million assignment fees, right? That's how you get to even $1 million, even $100,000 assignment fees, guys. You're not going to do this on your own. I said this in the beginning of the podcast, is you must get around people that will help you, but then you also must, like Dan always talks about, delegate to other people that can do the low ROI on your time tasks, which is cold calling, which is lead generation. And of course, you can use other sources like mailers and text blasting, which I have no problem with. I think they're all work great. Again, those are quote unquote passive type of lead generation versus active type of lead generation. So that's what I think kind of set me apart in terms of just being focused. A lot of people in this business of cold calling came and went. I'm sure you've heard of a lot of companies coming in. I had even people backstab me in the back of people that used to work for me start their own companies. Unfortunately, they came and left. It's not an easy business, but it's a business that everybody's going to need. It's like selling the shovels to the people that go out there and hunt the gold. We are the shovels, and they are going out there and mining the gold. And I'm okay with that, man. I'm super okay with that. I don't need to go out there and be the guy that made $4 million in assignment fees. But I would love to be the guy that helped hundreds of investors scale their businesses. That's what I would love to do. Like, I would love to be known as that connector. Hey, man, Anton, thank you so much, man. I love that you connected me with Loren. I love that you connected me with X, Y, and Z. That's what I'm going for. Because at the end of the day, it's a relationship sport.
Rising tide lifts all ships, right? It's one of my mottos for my whole life, and that's how I've built my business up to this point. And every time I go to a networking event, every time I make a connection, if I can help them, eventually that'll come back around. And if it doesn't, I at least help somebody out, right? You don't go into it thinking, how can I get something out of this? You go into it, how can I help other people? So that's awesome. As we kind of wrap this up, give me an idea of what you guys are doing, future wise. Share with me the vision, and then I've got our last 2 questions that I ask all of our guests.
Awesome. So the vision, in a nutshell, my 5 to 10 year vision is to be the, as I mentioned previously, connector. So I have it actually written down. Connect investors to all sources related to lead generation. I want us to be, quote unquote, a one-stop shop of acquisitions, dispositions, lenders, title companies, insurance companies, contractors, where you as an investor can come in. You can either get leads, you can either help somebody disposition a lead, you can either find a lender like Loren, you can find a title company. But I want us to be just this I mean, the easiest way to describe it is like the Zillow of off-market lead generation, type of investor type of Zillow lead type of generation. And that's where we're going, is creating that ecosystem of, okay, we're good at acquisitions. Now we're doing all we can to be good at dispositions. We are connecting to people and purchasing different types of platforms like Investor Lift, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then from then on, I just want to be this connecting network of, look, I'm an investor. Where do I go to find deals? You go to REI Lead Pros. And then from there, where do I go to find lenders? You go to REI Lead Pros. Where do I go to find this disposition company? You go to REI. So just one-stop shop for everybody looking to do deals, and us just being that provider. That's the 5-year vision.
Love it. Love it. All right. As we wrap things up, so 2 questions I always ask. First one is, knowing what you know now, if you were to go back and talk to yourself when you were 20 or talk to your new child when they are 19 or 20, what advice would you give them about going out and starting a business or not starting a business or life in general?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And of course, I mentioned this to you offline, but I just became a dad 3 weeks ago. Things definitely changed for me in terms of what I thought I would become in myself, what I thought I would know. Now that I see this little guy, my future guy, to take over the reins one day. But if I could tell him at 18, 19 years old, and which I will tell him, and probably even sooner, my guy, one of the things that my family did not give me money. My family did not give me um, much that I can materially show for, but my family gave me an opportunity, and my family gave me the lessons that I needed to learn of, you need to start early. And I wish I would have followed that path instead of, I got into the whole world of corporate and traveling the world. That was fun for me. But honestly, if I could go back, I would tell myself, you know what, man, start your real estate journey, start your business journey way sooner. You can do the whole traveling, all of that later. Time flies, man. I'm 37 years old, and I wish I would have started back when I was 18. And my kid is going to start when he's 18. So just start, man. Whatever mistakes you're going to make, I'd rather you make them when you're 20 than when you're 30. It's a lot more rewarding. It's a lot less expensive, and and you're going to do a lot better. So I'm playing the game of catch up now. I'm 37, right? Which I think I'm going to work until the day I die. But my son is going to start at 16, 17, 18 years old, being on construction sites, looking at deals, negotiating deals, and really building his portfolio by then. And I would encourage everybody listening to encourage your kids to do that. I mean, education is good, college is good, and it is a path. But if we're talking about long-term financial independence, which I think most of your listeners are what they're after, it's through really getting into your own business, buying real estate, leveraging the W-2, sure, leveraging, but take the steps to buy properties, learn about real estate, and get into this game, because it's a very rewarding, and time flies, man. Time flies. We just did a webinar really quick. I know we're short on time, but we just did a webinar about how we literally showed you. And if your listeners are interested, I can send you the recording of this webinar, and just DM me on Instagram webinar. I'm an open book. I love to connect with people, but we just did a webinar showing you how you can literally become a millionaire in 5 years just by buying one property per year. Anybody on this podcast can buy a property a year if you do your numbers correctly. And what we're talking about is looking at the market, making sure the rents are going to be able to cover the mortgage, insurance, property and taxes. So making sure that the rents are going to be able to cover it, buying a property at a right price based on those rents, and then just waiting 5 years and cash out refinancing. Like, this is your world. If you just cash out refinance in 5 years, you're literally going to be a millionaire, and you can start cashing out from one property that you bought 5 years ago, and then do that every single year, and letting the property pay itself off, and using the tax advantages, loan pay down, amortization, and then appreciation of the property strategies. So literally 5 years. And guys, 5 years flies like a freaking, like you told me before this call, your kid is 10 years old and you can't believe how fast that time flew. That time is going to fly. So just freaking
Yeah.
start today.
Yeah, everybody underestimates how much they are going to do in 10 years and overestimates what they're going to do in a year, right? And 5 years ago, I had 0 businesses, working a W-2, chasing that corporate ladder, and things have just changed. Don't but it never happens if you don't take action and start moving it forward, right? You got to do that. So I'm sure with a Colombian mother and a Russian father, your kid will be a tenacious negotiator, right? But I think the challenge with anybody that's had success with children, and this is not a topic that we need to get into today, is how do you give them the struggles that you had growing up that put you where you are today? And I worry about that on a regular basis, on how I give my kids enough suffering, right, to develop their character that they can get through the adversity they need to be successful, because I don't want trust fund babies. But different topic. So the last question I have for you is, managing a business is hard. It takes a ton of time, a ton of energy, a ton of mind space. You're just starting out as a father, but you have had a wife for a while. How have you managed the relationship with your wife, and how do you expect to manage a relationship with your children while also growing and building out your business and your dream?
Yeah, I love that question. If you don't mind, if I can take a step back really quick about what you said about your kids, and I'll definitely get to this question really quick. One of my mentors said to me one time is that you really have to prepare your children to take on the burden of your wealth. And when he said that to me, I'm like, wait, what? Like it didn't register. If you don't think that giving your children the wealth that you're making right now or you're working on is going to be a burden for them, you got to level up. You have to get to a point where it is going to be a burden for them. So you as a father, when he said that to me, it didn't register to me, but it's true. Your children will have to bear the responsibility and the burden of the wealth that you have created for them, and make sure that they can take it and grow it and be the quote unquote, just like you said, the ideal citizens of this world. So one thing that he really pointed on is that you as a father, you as a parent, you really just have to focus on making sure that your kid grows up and with great values. Forget about trying to stop them from using Chat GPT or stop using, just focus on creating an individual who's not going to be an asshole, who's not going to be another bully, and who's going to grow up with values. And that's what you really have to focus on. And then from there, you have to trust that they will be able to, based on the values that you have instilled in them, and that's going to be based on you, that they will be able to, again, handle the burden of your wealth. So that was a very powerful statement that came into my mind when you were just talking about it. But in terms of your question on how I'm able to balance, if you don't mind, because how I'm able to balance the business and the relationship at home, was that the...
Yeah, I think a lot of people struggle, and full transparency, I'm not sure if there is a balance. I think that there's seasons, right? Seasons of work and then seasons of family. But how do you plan, or how have you, been able to manage having a relationship and grow a business? Because both of those are very large time sucks, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I know we're running short on time here, but I'm going to tell this story since that was one of your questions when I registered for this podcast. Like, what's one of the funny things that changed your life in real estate? And I really just want to tell this story because I think it resonates with what you just asked. And that was when I was doing wholesaling. I was doing deals back when I was working with Gonzalo in my first year. My typical assignment check would be anywhere between $7,000 to $15,000, $7,000, $12,000, $5,000 assignment checks. And by the way, that's totally normal, but that has nothing to do with it. But I remember one time I got this property under contract. It was in Port St. Lucie, Florida. For those of you who are familiar with Florida, I was living in Miami at the time, and it was in Port St. Lucie, Florida. And I was just sitting at dinner having a discussion with my wife. I was going to make around, I posted it on my website. I was getting offers, and I was going to make around $5,000 assignment fee on it. And I remember just sitting there, and to be honest with you, I'm like, that was a point where I was comfortable with those $5,000, $7,000, $12,000 assignment fees. I was actually, happy with them. I mean, shit, it's a pretty nice check that comes in every single month, or a couple of weeks at times it was. And then I was just sitting there with my wife, and this goes back to your question: is how do you do this? And I think I didn't know at the time, but I know it now. And that is, don't be afraid, or don't be hesitant about sharing with your partner what it is that you're going through on your journey, in this journey of real estate, because you never know what they might say or do, or how they can encourage you to really just take you to the next level. Because I don't think anybody, apart from your parents, I don't think anybody out, your second person that knows you best of who you are and what your strengths and weaknesses are is probably your significant other. I mean, I hope your listeners chose a great partner. I was lucky enough to have a phenomenal partner now that I have the kid with. And I was lucky enough to be open with her and talk to her about my struggles or my everything that I was going through. And the funny thing here is that I'll never forget. We're sitting and having dinner and talking about this property. I was telling her, hey, this is in Port St. Lucie, 5,000. And she was like, why don't we flip it? I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, why don't we go ahead and just buy it and flip? I'm like, flip? Do you know the first thing about a flip? Like, do you know anything about a flip? Like, it kind of caught me off guard. I'm like, I've never done a flip. I know flips cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, well, tens of thousands at least. Which I'm like, this is crazy. 2 hours away from Miami to Port St. Are you crazy? She's like, well, let's just run some numbers. And we ran some numbers, and she really just pushed me. I'm like, no, babe, come on. What are you talking about? Flip. Let's just make 5,000, walk away. Let's be comfortable. She's like, no, why not? Let's take a risk. And we kind of just like laughed it off. But at the end of the day, she's like, come on, let's do it. Let's take a risk. Let's learn. Why not? What do we got to lose? You're going to make 5,000 out of it. Long story short, I grew enough cojones to go ahead and buy the property, flip it. And it took us 3 months, Loren. It was miserable. I hated every single minute of it. Driving over there, dealing with contractors, actually doing the work myself. I actually did a lot of work myself because I back from my days of laying tile, and one of the contractors quoted me like $8,000 to do the kitchen. I'm like, I installed the kitchen when I was 14. I can probably do it now. So I hired some guys from Home Depot, and it's probably the podcast, but we installed the kitchen for like a couple of $1,000. But long story short, I learned so much out of that experience, and I walked away with a $94,000 profit in 3 months, Loren. From that, literally that one conversation and her pushing me and me involving her and she's being there. And I think and now, even today, she's involved in everything that I do real estate side. She doesn't get involved in the call center side. She's like, no, that's all you. But real estate, regarding our properties, our property managers, our wholesale deals, flips that we're still continue to do. She's so into it and she loves it, and this is her strength. And I would never have known unless I would have just shared it with her. A lot of us try to keep things from our significant others for whatever reason because we don't want to stress them. We think they might not have the knowledge, but you never know. So communicate with your significant other, involve them in your day-to-day, get their advice, because like I said, they will probably tell you something that you already know, but you don't see, and that is because they can see you from the outside. So I think that's a story that I'll never stop talking about, but I think that's what really helped me find that balance of her being on my team. This is not me. This is us building this future for our son, Luca. So that's my answer to that one.
That's a perfect answer for that. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. If people want to reach out to you, get a hold of you, how can they do that best?
Absolutely, man. The best thing to do is Anton Zherelyev is my Instagram handle. I am the one there answering all the DMs, doing the 5 opens. Give me a follow, guys. I love helping, especially newbie investors. Don't be afraid to reach out. Like, Anton, send me your phone number. I'll send you my freaking phone number, and we can jump on a call, and I'll walk you through it. But I have to ask you one thing for your listeners is take freaking action. Don't just reach out to people like Loren or myself just to learn and walk away with knowledge. Because that's not going to be beneficial for anybody. But if you learn and you walk away and you take action and you make $1 million for your family and become a millionaire like Loren and I have, we're just going to give you a thumbs up and say, hey, man, let's see if we can do a deal together. Who knows? Yeah, Anton Zherelyev is where you can find me. Anton@reielitepros.com is my email if you guys want to send me a quick email. But I'm an open book. We'd love to connect and help you in any way that I can.
Awesome. And I will make sure all of your handles and links are in the show notes so anybody can quickly access those. Again, thank you for being on the podcast. This was a great time. We had a great conversation. If anybody got value out of this, make sure you go like and follow Antoine, like and follow the podcast, and we will talk to you and see you next week.
Thank you, Loren.
Thanks for tuning in to Brick by Brick Wealth Building Conversations. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. It helps more people find the show. For more tips, resources, and updates on my journey, follow me on Invest with Loren. Let's keep building wealth, one brick at a time. See you next week.